there's a hockey connection. So anyway, Tom, I'm going to get back. Want to get back to you in terms of um, your mindset going from back and forth, sort of from Hockey Canada and to the pros.
Mhm.
And then what was that like? Was it um, not easy, or was it? It wasn't a natural switch like going from coaching major junior to the American League to the pros.
I think I think it was important for me to touch all the bases. I coached 7 years of junior B hockey in southeast corner of BC. Before and then I coached the Penticton Knights for 2 months. Then I went to uh, Victoria with Frank Lento and was a project coordinator because Bob Nicholson had left to go to Ottawa. And then Ken Hitchcock called me and said, "Come and coach the Kamloops Blazers. I'm leaving to go pro." So I did that, and this is important because I think it shows you that there's different avenues to get to where you feel you're most applicable and can be most relevant to kind of humanity in a way. When I was in North Dakota and I was writing up my little my objectives for myself, I left school with a semester to go. I do not have a degree. And it was interesting for me. I thought that if I'm going to coach, I need to get going. And I did not want to be a school teacher. I enjoyed counseling high school in Invermere, but I actually made a huge life decision, which I think served as impetus to get as much experience as you can. You may not learn as much as you and others could in the classroom, but I wanted to learn as much as I could through kinesthetic participation, through having mentors, by making myself available to do almost anything, which included pushing pucks and setting up pylons in my very first under 17 camp in BC. But Wally, that was my trajectory. That's where I was in my comfort zone. That's where I knew that I would be able to, carry a conversation and make some sense at least. I loved hockey. I was a decent player, not a very big one, but I understood and appreciated the skill of the game and had a great coach in my hometown called Colin Patterson, and not the NHL Colin Patterson, but another coach that was a huge difference maker for me. And so, bouncing kind of back and forth was just making sure that I was in the game, making sure that I would still challenge with whatever leadership skills I had, to grow them, as to make a difference, where I was for the people that were there. And Wally, I loved it. I loved it, and I found that getting fired was a kind of almost a revelation, a step in progress. I mean, moving forward, take those experiences with you and move forward. I had an incredible conversation with Glenn and Jim Dolan in La Quinta at our scouts meetings one summer, and I think I can't remember the year it was. It might have been maybe '04, '05, and I had been hired as director of player personnel at first in New York. And we're having a barbecue at Glenn's place in La Quinta, and he said to Jim Dolan, "Jim, come on over for a second." And and we all knew each other, and we're talking away. And Glenn said to Jim, he said, "You need to know something, Jim." And Jim says, "Yeah, what's that?" He said, "This is our next general manager of the New York Rangers." And first of all, I had to be careful not to pee my pants. Um, but I was shocked. I was shocked by it, but I'd had a couple of years of player personnel, player development and whatnot. And he's telling the owner, I'm going to be the next general manager. And I think that diversification in my background, and the experience I was able to gain, I think my respect for people in the game, I like to think reciprocated, gave Glenn the comfort to be able to make that suggestion. And it blew me away. And then, of course, a year later, when Glenn's going through his fourth coach in New York, he told me he found his coach and I asked him who it was. And he said, you drafted him, you coach him.
Wow, what a, What a remarkable story.
Crazy. But it's possible for everybody, Wally. It really is. And I just and even us now at our age, like let's not give in. Let's continue to make a difference in what in whatever manner we possibly can. I love the fact that the Sharks have been going for I don't know how many years. But I know that Tommy, you've been on with the Sharks from day one, and don't ever underestimate your impact on who you're working with or for or around because your experiences are second to none, and they're a great tool to teach and learn and help others move on.
Oh, thanks, Tom.
You're welcome.
I'm curious, this idea of coaching, and I know that most coaches, really high performance coaches, they want to coach in the NHL. And they give it a whirl, they give it a cycle. And to me, the perfect place to coach, the most secure, is university or college. You're not going to get fired unless you do something really, really wrong.
Mhm.
And it depends on your AD, of course.
Mhm.
But Dave, you left University of Saskatchewan. That was sort of a building block in your coach development, that experience. I know the coaching against you with George Kingston at the time, you made us better because you pushed the envelope. And that generation of coaches, Claire Drake coming in,
Mhm.
um, and the longevity of all of them. And Dave, you were one of the few who took a pretty big jump, got your foot in the door, starting with the national team to be successful, which I think gave respect to academic coaching, teaching. So, Dave, can you talk a little bit about the U of S and then that role in your development and how it got you into higher levels of coaching? Because you had already, I believe, experienced the leadership gig with Hockey Canada, although I'm not 100% sure. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, well, I was unlike Tom. I never thought about the NHL. Actually, I never thought about coaching hockey. I was actually a very good high school football coach, and was offered the opportunity maybe of going further in football with the teams in Saskatoon. So, but I was always a hockey player, and so when I got a chance to go to major junior. I was a high school teacher, physical education, coached a number of sports. My wife Linda and I decided when we got an offer to go to Billings, which was the Calgary Centennials, moving to Billings, Montana, a very tenuous situation, I think. I decided to take a risk and leave teaching without having a guarantee of a job if I didn't make it to come back to. So we took that. Um, and I've always taken the approach that one of the most important things you can do in coaching, and probably any profession, but in my profession, which is coaching, is work with really good people. And so when we were in major junior, we got to the Western final against New Westminster. They won it. They won the Memorial Cup twice in a row, actually. I learned a lot from a lot of coaches in that league. And one thing I'll tell you, I learned when I coached major junior to respect other coaches. Yes, I was a guy that a lot of my teaching background, you could see it in my coaching, I guess. I've been told that by players. But I learned to also respect uh, other people. Ernie McLean, Punch McLean, Patty Janelle. That's the era I coached major junior hockey. And it was a rough, tough, oh God, it was unbelievable. But I learned that these guys could coach. Not only could they motivate, they were very good coaches. Yes, their games were pretty simple, like with Ernie McLean and Patty Janelle. The one thing you always heard about them, he wanted to hear the forecheck. We want to hear the forecheck. We want to hear the forecheck. They came after you, and they always not the most organized, but boy, I'm telling you, they put the fear of God in you. So I learned a lot from those kind of guys, and I learned to respect that other coaches have different ways of doing things, but they have their way of doing it, and they're good at it. And so I learned to respect that. When I went to the University of Saskatchewan, the program was at an all-time low, so first thing I did, I got Ron Robinson, who was a student at the time, had played Husky hockey but was no longer playing. I got Ron Robinson to be my assistant coach and help us organize an alumni. So, like Ron Robinson's president of the Western Hockey League for years and years and years. I got a gal named Lori Bush who went on to work for the NHL in New York for 10 years. I got the Gattinger brothers, physiotherapists that both went on to go to the NHL. I got Troy Parchman, who's still with the Chicago Blackhawks as trainer. I just got really good people around me. I always insulated myself from my own incompetence. And so that's what I tried to do. And with the Saskatchewan, I got to tell you, I thought I knew something about the game, but when I started to coach against, well, imagine a league with Bob Hindmarsh in BC. He worked with Father Bauer with the national team in the 60s. You had Claire Drake in Alberta, George Kingston in Calgary. You had Andy Murray in Brandon. You had Wayne Fleming in Manitoba. You had Reg Higgs, who coached with the Rangers in Regina. And there I was in Saskatoon. So I knew I was overmatched straight away. And I just took the approach, learn as much as you can. Just always try to improve your game so you can help your players. And, we had some success there. And so I went on there, and then I got a chance to go to the national team at the 84 Olympics, which, again, I was lucky in my career. People say I was lucky because when I coached with the Huskies at the University of Saskatchewan, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Still on. There was a great league. I mean, Calgary, University of Alberta, they were the powerhouses. And so you're kind of overplayed a little bit. You got real tough opposition. When I coached the national team and then the Olympic team in 84, Tretiak was still playing goal for the Russians. Kazatonov, Fedosov, Larionov, Krutov, and Makarov were still their top line. So, and I've always coached in situations when I was developing as a coach in leagues or in competitions where the opposition was better. So it was terrific for me because it always forced me to try to improve my game and get better at it so we could be more competitive. So, that's really a benefit of my particular route to the game was keep learning. The only thing I would say that probably was detrimental to that was when I went into pro hockey with the Calgary Flames. For so many years, all my players got the same approach from me. I mean, I wanted everybody to be on the same page. I had a lot of players that were probably very similar in skill level at major, junior, and college hockey. When I coached the Flames, I mean, when you coach Theron Fleury and Gary Roberts, you don't coach in the same way you coach Joe Nieuwendyk and Joel Otto. Joel Otto and Otto and Nieuwendyk, they want help. They want information. They're analytical. Roberts and Fleury were screw that tactics. Just I'll get out there and I'll outcompete my opponent. And so I learned right away I have to find a different approach for different people. And I had to be careful because some players didn't want a lot of analysis of the opposition. They didn't like the video meetings. They didn't like that kind of stuff. So you learn, you adjust, you adapt. That's what coaching's all about. Okay.
Awesome.
Okay.
Great stories. Unreal. I don't know what to say, Dave. That was, I'm just so intrigued about both of you, Tom and you, because you sort of gone the whole distance.